Now at 5, new details in a reported racially motivated attack at Lake Monroe. Tonight, the other side of the story. The lawyers now coming forward and claiming there was no attempted lynching.
Students and staff will not be returning to in-person classes this fall for one Marion County school district. I'm Stephanie Wade talking with the school and hearing parents' reaction.
When people are uncertain, crime becomes an option.
After another violent and deadly weekend in Indianapolis, a local minister shares his views on slowing the surge of violence during the pandemic.
This is RTV6 News at 5, working for you.
Now at 5, new details emerging from that controversial 4th of July incident at Lake Monroe near Bloomington. It sparked protests and demands for justice after a black man reported a racial attack.
And tonight, the lawyers for 2 of the people in the video say there is another side to this story. RTV6's Rafael Sanchez reports on the new developments that call into question the initial account of what happened.
This video, which went viral, shows Sean Purdy holding down Vox Booker. Booker claims this was part of an attempted lynching by a group of white men. Purdy denies that, through his lawyers saying that he gave Booker, who was on private property, an ATV ride to his friend's location, and then they both moved on.
Mr. Purdy gave Mr. Booker and his friend a ride in his ATV and said, here's how you get to your gathering. Here's the property line. They parted ways. Mr. Booker gave him a beer out of his 12-pack.
Purdy says that Booker returned later. Purdy claims that Booker told his girlfriend, Caroline McCord, that he was a county commissioner who could levy fines, and then allegedly punched Purdy 3 times. And that's when Purdy says that he held Booker down by the tree for his safety.
So he restrains him, and they're tussling around. He's trying to get him down. So they did end up against a tree.
There are multiple videos, which are all incomplete. You can hear, though, inappropriate language, including a racial slur, from others who were with Purdy and McCord.
They do know those people. They do condemn that language.
Purdy and McCord did not speak to the media today. They did speak to a polygraph examiner on Saturday in Lafayette. They were asked many questions. What they were asked and what they said, that story coming up tonight on the news at 6. In Indianapolis, Rafael Sanchez, RTV6.
And we are waiting for a response from Vox Booker. Purdy and McCord have already been interviewed by the FBI. The Department of Natural Resources is also investigating this July 4th incident. And a Marion County judge today sentenced a truck driver that caused a crash that killed a mother and twin daughters to 9 years in prison. It'll be 1 year ago tomorrow that Bruce Pollard slammed into stopped traffic on 465 near Keystone on the north side and killed 29-year-old Alana Coons and her twins, 18-month-old daughters. Pollard from Sturgeon, Missouri, pled guilty but mentally ill to 11 felonies and misdemeanors. The 9-year sentence was the maximum allowed under the plea agreement.
With coronavirus cases still climbing in Indiana, one Marion County school district has made a major decision about students returning to school in the fall. RTV6's Stephanie Wade explains why Washington Township students won't be returning to the classroom.
The Washington Township School Board president says they worry students might become infected with the virus. And even if they don't become seriously ill, they worry they might pass it on to someone who will, acknowledging their African-American families are at a higher risk. Because of this, they've decided students will not be returning to in-person classes this fall.
Please know that this is a difficult decision, and that there were many factors that were considered, but I think it was the rise in cases in Marion County that probably got the board's attention more than any single other factor.
The school board president says they are postponing their reopening plan after surveying families, teachers, and stakeholders. He says it's difficult to implement social distancing in hallways and classrooms, and the board felt going back in person was an unnecessary risk. This also includes all extracurricular activities, meaning fall sports are canceled for the time being.
Some people are upset. Some people think kids don't get it, kids don't spread it. But I'm a teacher too, and I have a lot of peers that are nervous about that. We've all suffered losses, and I think we have to take it seriously.
Starting July 30th, all classes will be virtual until they decide otherwise. Stephanie Wade, RTV6.
At each board meeting, they will examine where we are locally in the fight against coronavirus when it comes to considering if students may return to the classroom. They will also consider factors like ICU admissions and the death rate. Tonight, all IPS parents have a chance to learn more about the district's back-to-school plans in a virtual meeting open to everyone. The Family and Community Town Hall begins at 6:30. 5,000 people can attend via Zoom. Everyone else can watch on the IPS Facebook page. You don't need an account to watch on Facebook. IPS announced last week it will resume classes on August 3rd, both in person and also with a full-time remote learning option. Those wishing to use the remote learning option must fill out the registration form by Friday. At tonight's meeting, Superintendent Alicia Johnson and other IPS administrators will explain more about the reopening plan and answer questions. Marion County Public Health Department Director Dr. Virginia Kane will also join the discussion. You can find links to register to take part via Zoom, as well as a link to register your child for online learning in this story at theindychannel.com.
And how about that for a way to start the week? Lots of sunshine in the morning. There's a few fair weather clouds out there now. You combine the low humidity, the comfortable temperatures, and I'll rate the day an 8.66. You got to leave room for improvement. Tomorrow will be close. It'll be another beautiful day. Our temperatures, comfortable. Lower 80s in Peru, 83 in Bloomington, 81 in Columbus. You combine that with the light wind, the wind's under 10 miles per hour in most cases, but out of a northerly direction, keeping the humidity down. Now you see them, tonight you won't. The clouds will fade away. Temperatures in the morning will be at 62 in Indianapolis, but outlying areas in the 50s. Find out when high temperatures will be some 30 degrees warmer coming up.
Tonight, the Trump administration is appealing a federal judge's ruling delaying federal executions, including a lethal injection that was to take place about an hour ago at the federal prison in Terre Haute. The execution of Daniel Lewis Lee was to be the first federal execution in 17 years. But this morning, a judge in Washington, D.C. ordered a new delay in all federal executions. The judge ruled that all executions by the federal government should be on hold until she hears arguments in a lawsuit over the lethal injection drugs used by the government. And Lee's execution had previously been halted by a judge in Indianapolis, but a federal appeals court had overturned that ruling. 3 executions were scheduled to take place this week in Terre Haute, but as of right now, they are on hold. And Indianapolis is on pace for the most violent year in the city's history. So far, there have been 119 homicides, 5 alone this past weekend. One faith leader believes there's a connection to violent crime, the pandemic, the unemployment rate, and racial protests. He says some people are feeling hopeless and using violence as a response because they've been stripped of their jobs, income, and equality. Working for you, RTV6's Troy Washington speaks with one pastor urging the use of resources available and less violence.
My plea, my earnest plea, is don't give into the bait of feeling like crime is your only option. It's not. It's not.
Week after week, we report on the violence surging since the unemployment took off because of the coronavirus.
It's like an escape out of hopelessness when the reality is it only brings people into a deeper place of hopelessness.
This pastor says he sees why people might be feeling hopeless right now, but says turning to violence isn't the answer.
Crime was already an option before these challenges, but now with COVID being on top of COVID, it's now more of a challenge. And when you have challenges like this, when it comes to resources, when it comes to employment, when it comes to opportunity.
He says more people are unemployed right now. There's less food for some to eat, and in some areas, less opportunities since the pandemic hit. He says not to mention the frustration fueled by the push for racial justice, also playing a part in the explosion of anger.
Somebody may say, Pastor, they're hungry, they're struggling. we have pantries and we've partnered with organizations to make sure that you can get fed.
Right now, we are 37 homicides ahead of where we were at this time last year. And if we keep up the pace, we are on track to reach 221 homicides this year. He says often people are in a hurry to point a finger at city leaders and their policies, but it takes all-around accountability to slow down the surge of violence while slowing the spread of COVID-19. Working for you, Troy Washington, RTV6.
And the pastor says he understands that some people may feel stuck right now. He says anyone that needs help should reach out for it and use it. He wants to remind all Hoosiers that food pantries are available to assist you if you need help. He encourages using rental assistance programs. You can find resources that are available to you right now on our website at theindychannel.com/rebound. Still ahead on the news at 5, separated due to COVID-19, the extreme step one wife took so she could visit her husband in his long-term care facility.
A weekend storm took down some big trees in central Indiana, where cleanup is underway today.
Keller and Keller.
Now let's get to the new developments in the spread of coronavirus in Indiana. The state reported only 2 new deaths today. That's the lowest number of new deaths reported since mid-March. Overall, the daily number has not gone above 15 in the last 6 days. 2,569 Hoosiers have died from COVID-19. As for new cases, the Department of Health reported an additional 452 have tested positive. After spikes in the 700s on Friday and Saturday, the numbers are coming down a bit. Just more than 52,000 Hoosiers have tested positive for COVID-19. Today is also the day the state releases weekly updates on nursing home deaths and cases. Numbers specific to facilities are coming later this summer. As of today, there have been 1,245 deaths in long-term care facilities, an increase of 25 from last week. That's a little less than half of the overall deaths in our state.
Deaths from coronavirus are on the rise in almost half of the United States, and some of the hardest hit areas are considering reinstituting shutdowns. That includes a new one just announced today by the governor of California. And as the World Health Organization touts a number of potential vaccines being tested, they still warn we have a long way to go. ABC's Trevor Alt has the latest from New York.
The numbers in the fight against COVID-19 in the United States are growing grimmer by the day. Today, 39 states and Washington, D.C. are seeing increasing cases, 31 states have rising hospitalizations, and 23 states, nearly half the country, are reporting a rise in deaths.
My plea to our community, and especially all of our young folks in the community, is to take it seriously. Wear your mask.
Florida announcing 12,600 new cases today, the second highest total behind Sunday's 15,000. Some city leaders in the state now considering shutting down once again.
This week is going to be the tell-all. And if we have to take steps backwards, this will be the week where we make that difficult decision.
As cases rise in California, today Governor Gavin Newsom announcing the closure of all indoor dining and bars statewide.
A lot of these activities that were happening inside, like restaurants, moving those activities outside, the impact of the spread of the virus outside, we believe, is more favorable.
Dr. Louis Tran, who volunteered in New York City in the spring, warns that while they've had time to prepare in California, the hospital system could get overwhelmed.
There's a lot of fear and trepidation among my staff and among the hospital in general. A lot of us are still nervous that the surge will eventually outstrip our resources.
As scientists race for a vaccine, the World Health Organization says globally more than 100 potential vaccines are being studied in laboratories, with 23 now moving on to human trials. But they still warn we're a long way from the light at the end of the tunnel.
I want to be straight with you. There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future.
And here in New York, where they continue to ask travelers coming from out-of-state hotspots to quarantine when they arrive, today Governor Andrew Cuomo says those travelers who don't provide their contact information will be hit with a $2,000 fine. Trevor Alt, ABC News, New York.
Residents of long-term care facilities are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19 due to either their age, underlying health conditions, or both. And because of that, visitors are limited or not allowed. And that's agonizing for both the patient and the family. So to get around that, a Florida wife was willing to do whatever it took to be with her husband. Mary Daniel of Jacksonville took a part-time job as a dishwasher at the facility where her husband lives so she could see him. He has Alzheimer's and his facility is not allowing visitors. They had not seen each other for 3 months until Mary took the job. Before the pandemic, they saw each other every day.
He saw me and he said, "Mary," and we hugged, and just like I had thought it would be. Just to hold him again after 114 days is just an amazing feeling. Dementia patients need contact. Their brain needs stimulation to keep alive. And when they don't have that stimulation, when they don't have physical touch, their brain just slowly is dying.
After her shift, she can visit her husband. Mary said she can already see a difference in her husband, who has lost 10 pounds due to anxiety. And now to your Storm Team 6 forecast. Nice day today, Kevin, but we had some stormy hours over the weekend that led to power outages and tree damage. That's still getting cleaned up today.
Can I ask you a spontaneous question?
Go for it.
So you were going to go to the Brad Paisley concert right up at Ruoff on Saturday. Did that?
John Party on Saturday, yes.
John Party.
We were a little worried about that rain. Whew.
Okay, so it worked. Good. Okay. Well, the storms that you're talking about, let me take you all now to Crown Hill Cemetery, where it was closed on Sunday due to cleanup from the Saturday storms. Most of the storms were early in the day into early evening and then moved out. If you've been to Crown Hill, and I'm sure you have, over 500 acres, it is a massive facility, so cleanup on that scale can be time-consuming, no doubt. Okay, these are harmless clouds here, not building into any thunderstorms. We are in good shape until probably Wednesday night. I love seeing the cumulus clouds. They're my favorite clouds. They've got curb appeal. You won't see them tonight, though. They'll fade away. 78 in Richmond, 84 in Sullivan. Everywhere, temperature slightly below average for this time of year. Say hello to Eddie. Named after Eddie Rickenbacker, first owner or an early owner of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jennifer Shirley sent in that picture. She's also a co-worker at RTV6, new puppy in the family. Temperature down to 69 by 11 o'clock and the skies will be clear. I show you the radar to build your confidence. No issues the next 24 to 36 hours. Most likely return for rain will be late Wednesday, more likely Wednesday night. That 30% chance of rain is late afternoon. It'll go up Wednesday night into Thursday through the first half of Thursday, and then we'll continue with a chance for thunderstorms the rest of the forecast. Tomorrow, another comfortable day. The humidity will stay down. Temperatures will come up a bit. We'll work our way into the upper 80s for a high temperature of about 86. And I want to show you the 7-day forecast. No shock here, but we will heat up significantly with high humidity. Friday through Monday of next week, low to middle 90s. The thunderstorm chances are there because the humidity will be very high during the heat of the day. The most likely time for these thunderstorms to develop, any one of which would have heavy rainfall as a result of that high humidity. But look at overnight lows, 75 degrees. Take advantage of another night tonight where we'll be in the upper 50s to low 60s. Gotta go. See you in a bit.
Actress and wife of actor John Travolta has lost her battle with cancer. 57-year-old Kelly Preston died Sunday after a private 2-year battle with breast cancer. Preston had a lengthy career in film and television, including Jerry Maguire, Twins, and For the Love of the Game. Travolta and Preston had 3 children together. Their son Jet died in 2009 at the age of 16 after suffering a seizure. They also have a 20-year-old daughter and 9-year-old son. And authorities in Southern California say they have found the body of Glee star Naya Rivera during their search of a lake. Now, the discovery was made this morning, 5 days after her 4-year-old son was found alone in a boat the two had rented.
It's a name that's been around for nearly 90 years, but the professional football team in Washington, D.C. will get a new nickname. What Navajo Nation would like to see as the replacement.
1400 to find Stella Rosa wines near you.
After 87 years being associated with a professional football team, a nickname that is considered racist will be going away. Washington, D.C.'s NFL team confirmed today that the Redskins' name and logo will be retired. As ABC's Rachel Scott reports, the team's owner and coach are working to develop a new name and look for the future.
The team officially announcing they are getting rid of the name and the logo, but many say this team has been behind the times. They were the last NFL team to integrate. They have held on to this controversial name widely seen as racist for 87 years. The team's owner previously said he would never change the name, saying it actually honored Native Americans, now buckling under pressure after corporate sponsors and backers came out and demanded for change. Nike and Amazon stopped selling the team's merchandise online. FedEx, which owns the naming rights to the team's stadium behind me, also driving that change. Now, sources tell our ESPN that the team is expected to keep its colors but lose all Native American imagery. And of course, lots of speculation on what that new name could be. Some even suggesting the Red Tails in honor of the Tuskegee Airmen. Rachel Scott, ABC News, Landover, Maryland.
The Navajo Nation released a statement calling this an historic day for indigenous peoples around the world. It says in part, quote, "We strongly encourage the NFL Washington organization to rename their team in such a way that truly honors and respects the first Americans of this country. Renaming the team Code Talkers to honor the Navajo Code Talkers and other tribal nations who use their sacred language to help win World War II would set the team on a path to restoring its reputation and correcting the historical misrepresentation of indigenous peoples," end quote. Kids across Indiana have been stuck at home this summer because of the pandemic. Tonight at 6, how some camps are going virtual to help your child rebound and to give them something to do. And have you filed your tax return yet? The deadline is fast approaching. Even if you didn't wait until the last minute, you could still be waiting for something else.
Keller and Keller. Right now.
This is RTV6 News at 5:30, working for you.
And now at 5:30, waiting, and still waiting. Why some who filed their taxes well ahead of this week's deadline are still waiting for their refund and how much longer it could be before they get their money. And it's not just Indianapolis. More Indiana communities are imposing a mask mandate to keep Hoosiers safe from coronavirus. Dan.
Here's what we're talking about in our lineup. Getting prescriptions covered is becoming even more of a challenge right now. What you need to check on if your prescription is denied. And companies are continuing to reinvent themselves to survive. Why one small business says it's about using what you already have. Also this.
People are realizing that this is a good investment in our future, our collective future, our corporate future, our institutional future.
Demand is growing for anti-racism trainings, how organizations leading them are working to bring long-term change.
First at 5:30, a deadline is looming this week. The federal and state governments gave everyone an extension this year to file your taxes due to the pandemic, but that deadline is just 2 days away, Wednesday, July 15th. But millions of people have already filed and are receiving some frustrating news from the IRS this week. The agency says some refunds will be delayed another few months. Disappointing news during a year when every dime counts. Consumer reporter John Matarese explains why, so you don't waste your money.
Bad news for more than 4 million taxpayers. They may now have to wait until this fall to receive their tax refund, according to the government. Christy Mack never waits to file her taxes because she depends on her refund.
Well, we mailed it at the end of February, and we waited.
But months later, Christy and so many others still don't have their refund this year.
18 weeks have gone by since we mailed in our return.
Christy says she did what she and her husband do every year. In mid-February, long before the pandemic hit, they headed to the local post office and mailed their paper tax forms. It's now almost 6 months. And you tried calling and couldn't find out anything?
No, it just says they weren't taking calls at the moment.
The IRS's National Taxpayer Advocate now says as many as 4.7 million people will have very late refunds. That's because the agency furloughed thousands of workers and stopped processing paper returns for 2 months, creating a huge backlog. Christy needs that refund badly.
It means a lot, especially because with everything going on, my husband's job, they've been really slow.
We're passing Christy's info on to the IRS, though it may not make a difference if her return is in a stack of thousands.
You kind of rely on that as part of, your income, and it's not there, it does make things a little sketchy.
And with the IRS extending the tax deadline to July 15th this year, even more paper returns are about to be added to the stack. If you're still looking for your refund, all you can do is go to the IRS website, look up the Where's My Refund section, cross your fingers, and don't waste your money. I'm John Matteries for RTV6.
Pick a county, any county. We'll choose Putnam County here with our tower cam view and just some cumulus clouds around. It's been beautiful in all 92 Indiana counties, and I'll show you another one now. Let's go down to Bloomington. Again, these clouds that you see overhead right now, once we start to cool down, they'll fade away and the sky will go clear. And temperatures, they'll fall. Currently, temperature is in the low 80s in most locations. That wind out of the north-northwest and the humidity low. That makes it feel even better. Bloomington temperature 81. 84 in Bedford, temperatures lower 80s over toward Columbus. We zip to the north, Logansport with a 79-degree temperature. Tomorrow morning, enjoy this because I showed you a little bit ago, overnight lows will be consistently in the mid-70s, low to mid-70s, late weekend into early next week. That will feel great during the morning hours tomorrow. The humidity remains low tomorrow as we plan your day. Temperatures by lunchtime at 81. Afternoon high with, again, just some fair weather clouds reaches 86 degrees. We'll talk about warming up in a big way and take a look at the next couple of days ahead coming up.
Let's check the news feed. 2 potential coronavirus vaccines are getting fast-tracked in the United States. Pfizer and a German biotech firm are working together to develop them. We're expecting early data on the trials this month. And the White House is trying to discredit the nation's leading infectious disease expert. A White House official says they're concerned about the number of times Dr. Anthony Fauci has been wrong. The U.S. Surgeon General says as information changes, so do the recommendations. And the U.S. and Brazil now account for half of the daily new coronavirus cases worldwide. The World Health Organization director says too many countries are headed in the wrong direction, and many have lost previous gains in controlling the spread. And as we see an increase in COVID-19 cases, we're looking at where we stand with our supply chain and getting the products we need at the grocery store. Texas is one place where there is currently limits on how much toilet paper, cleaning products, and brisket people can buy. One professor of management we talked with who looks at supply chain says we're in a better place than when the pandemic first started, but she says demand is still an issue.
People are still making fewer trips to the grocery because they're timing those trips. And so when you go fewer times, you buy more when you buy. And so there is still bulk purchasing, and that's still going to create surges in the demand stream.
She says the limits stem from concerns that people will start hoarding products again as we see more COVID-19 cases. Companies have been adapting, but still don't expect all your favorite items to be available like they used to be.
Today, I think firms are having to recalibrate what the right level of inventory to hold is to be prepared against these demand surges and to be prepared to supply at a time when some of their key suppliers may be shut down, may be unable to import from overseas, and so forth. So the supply chain is still being re-optimized for the current time period.
Another thing we're still seeing in some places are higher meat prices. The president of one Baltimore area meat packing company says there's no longer a shortage, but he says suppliers are likely raising prices to make up for those losses due to the virus. That's forcing some grocery stores and restaurants to continue to raise their prices. Back to the lineup. One small business that got creative to survive the pandemic has a message for others trying to rebound. How they're using what they already had to get people back to work and to help the community as well.
Refi now.
Welcome back. More Indiana cities are imposing mask mandates as health officials report the state's most hospitalizations of people with coronavirus-related illnesses in nearly a month. West Lafayette's mayor announced today an immediate requirement that face coverings be worn in public places. Mayor John Dennis cited the expected upcoming return of Purdue University students among the risk for spreading COVID-19. A mask requirement is scheduled to take effect Wednesday in Evansville, following similar mandates in Indianapolis and 3 northern Indiana counties. Hospitals around the state had 764 coronavirus patients as of Sunday. That is the most since June 19th.
Companies on the verge of shutting down are finding new ways to survive during the pandemic. Chris Conti continues looking at how businesses are reinventing themselves as they rebound.
In the age of COVID, the way we travel has changed considerably. Gone are those group tours which once crisscrossed the country.
And then just to have it stop overnight is just, it's just unheard of.
No need to explain that to John Bailey, whose family has owned Bailey Coach in York, Pennsylvania since 1933. When the virus hit, travel stopped and this proud 64-year-old was forced to lay off all 62 of his employees.
It's devastating to me from the standpoint that I've worked my entire professional career to ensure that I can be a good employer and raise families, provide for families.
Determined to somehow keep from going under, John looked around, and that's when he found his answer, the $750 sprayer.
When COVID-19 hit, I said, I'm not going down without a fight. I'm going to do something to provide employment to as many people as I can.
John had purchased the sprayer a few years back to sanitize his buses. So why not, he figured, start sanitizing other things?
I looked at this way to kind of reinvent myself.
Like small businesses across the country, reinvention has become a way to survive. Bailey Coach now owns 7 of those sprayers. Every day they're deployed to local businesses to disinfect facilities for COVID, from kitchens to conference rooms. And John has been able to rehire more than 20 people.
We do this on an ongoing basis as far as preventive maintenance, much as a pest control company would do, that you're spraying for bugs or ants that you don't want to come into your facility. So we're really spraying for germs.
And they're giving back to the community. Over the past 3 months, they've sanitized 500 first responders' vehicles for free. As for Bailey Coach, their message to other small businesses trying to rebound from this pandemic, look at what you already have.
Other businesses need to look within and say, what are we really good at? What can we do?
A lesson in resiliency, courtesy of a $750 sprayer. I'm Chris Conti reporting.
Back to the lineup. African-American women are at a high risk for a number of health issues. How a national movement driven by black women is working to change that, one step at a time.
Working for you.
As the conversation on race continues across the country, anti-racism training organizations are seeing a big increase in inquiries for their services. The types of organizations looking for these trainings is changing as well. Crossroads Anti-Racism Organizing and Training tells us it received 275 inquiries in June for trainings. It typically gets around 25 to 30 a month. Overcoming Racism tells us it's seen at least 10 times as many people reaching out about training now. Both of them typically work with school and nonprofit groups, but they're seeing more businesses asking for their services. The vetting process is important to both organizations.
We really just want to know that people are thinking about it in terms of how do we move beyond changing the hearts and minds of people? Because the hearts and minds of people really governs individual actions. But the problems that we see socially right now are not based on the acute actions of individuals. It's systemic in nature.
Some people who've had something occur within the organization kind of want to be able to prove that they've done something to address the situation. And that's not what we're about. We are about engaging in a partnership that focuses on creating the steps and the protocols and the structural necessities for systemic change within that organization.
Michael Russell is a national organizer for Crossroads. He says right now, company leadership is realizing that dismantling racism is a good investment in our future. Deborah Russell, the national program director for Crossroads, says that financial investment is just one thing that will be required for a business to make a lasting change.
We know that they have a sense of urgency right now, but we know also that this work of dismantling systemic racism is something that is long-term and has to be done in a very intentional and strategic way.
Ahmed Ahmed, the Director of Partnerships and Professional Learning at Overcoming Racism, agrees the process takes time and that it is both difficult and uncomfortable.
Our job is not to come fix your organization. It's to empower you to realize that the solutions to all the problems that you're facing exist within your institution. And the biggest gap that we see is that people just aren't asking the right questions.
He says his trainings are tailored based on who they're working with to talk about systemic racism in that certain industry and how to make changes to those policies. Michael Russell says he's encouraged as we continue these conversations that people are beginning to see racism doesn't just harm people of color.
Well, just think about this. What clouds you see out your window now will be gone this evening, and that's a good thing. Why? Because there's a free show tonight. You got to check this out. Whole family can go out, let the kids stay up a little late for this. Space station flyover in nearly perfect conditions. 10:48, a steady white light will appear just above the south-southwest horizon. It's always hard to pick up at the beginning, at least it is for me, but it will pass 45 degrees overhead, traveling then and disappearing in the east-northeast 6 minutes later. So it's a long pass, should be good to watch. Enjoy that. I'll repeat this again at 6 o'clock just to make sure you got it, and I'll post it on my Facebook page as well. Okay, the clouds, they disappear tonight. Temperatures are pretty consistent, aren't they? Generally in the low 80s. Zionsville right now at 77. They're the cool spot. The real heat sits to the west and southwest. It's 91 in Kansas City, 90 in Lincoln. Temperatures in Phoenix stayed in the 90s, middle to upper 90s, I think, for an overnight low last night. That's how warm it's been in the desert southwest. For us, sunshine dominates in the morning. Temperatures warm to about 78. Late morning, early afternoon high 85 or 86, with just some fair weather clouds developing as we go through the day. These are base temperatures from which we'll continue to warm up. And as we get to the weekend, temperatures, they're going to jump into the low to mid 90s. Our next best chance for rain Wednesday night through the first half of Thursday. Then, as you can see, we'll hold on to a daily chance for some showers and thunderstorms. This TV's even throwing off some heat right now. I can feel the warmth, even though it's a few days away.
There's a new petition for the government to enforce safety standards on airlines to help slow the spread of coronavirus. That tops our newsfeed. Consumer Reports is pushing the Department of Transportation to make safety protocols mandatory. Right now, they are only recommendations. This comes after several airlines said they will begin to book passengers on every seat. Others are leaving middle seats open. And Disney heirs, the founders of Ben & Jerry's, and other wealthy people are calling on governments to tax them to help for coronavirus relief. Some 80 millionaires are part of an open letter that says they have a lot of money to help battle and recover from the virus. They say the tax should be immediate, substantial, and permanent. And education testing standards continue to change because of the pandemic. Some business schools are waiving the standardized test requirement for the GMAT. It's usually required to get into graduate programs. That's so they can attract more applicants and increase their diversity. Other schools are not requiring ACT or SAT scores. And multiple studies have shown African American women are at a higher risk for a number of health issues, from diabetes to heart disease. As Maya Rodriguez tells us, a national movement driven forward by Black women is seeking to change that one step at a time.
For Habiba Jackson, the path to a healthier life may look like a personal journey, with only her dog Rocky for company. It's anything but.
And they like to say, oh, you're a walking group. It is so much more than a walking group. We like to say we're a walking movement.
Jackson helps lead neighborhood walks for Girl Trek, a nonprofit group of nearly 800,000 African American women, taking one step at a time together. The pandemic changed that a bit. So, to unite all of the now solo walkers across the country, Girl Trek's Ebony Andrews says the group launched a podcast focusing on African American women's history.
Our focus is to help save the lives of Black women by inspiring them to take charge of their self-care, to own their joy, to claim what's their best lives. And one of the primary ways we do that is through encouraging community and encouraging walking.
It's a move that can make a difference. The CDC says Black women are at a high risk for heart disease and stroke, and 3 times more likely than white women to die in childbirth. Some studies have linked those health effects for African American women to chronic stress due to experiencing racism. Girl Trek seeks to counteract that.
Walking helps with stress. Walking is also something that requires limited resources. It's putting one foot in front of the other and getting out the front door. We have a saying that we say within our office that when women walk, things change.
It's something Jackson sees as well.
If you look at the social change that's happening now, imagine if you weren't in shape enough to walk. How could you actively protest if you're not physically able to keep a stance? People are walking for 8 hours. So Girl Trek also helps you prepare for situations like that.
Now, Girl Trek is setting its sights on a new goal: to get 1 million African American women walking with purpose. In Silver Spring, Maryland, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Yelp is bringing back nearly all of its furloughed employees. That means restored pay and hours for about 1,100 workers starting next month. However, offices will stay closed into 2021. And Google is announcing new scholarships and online certificate programs. The company says it will consider the career certificate as an equivalent to a four-year college degree. Google is funding 100,000 need-based scholarships. And one final check on the lineup. More people are having problems getting their prescriptions covered by insurance, and not just because of job loss and losing health coverage. The things you need to ask if your prescription is denied.
Keller and Keller, right now.
The pandemic has exacerbated a problem with prescription medication. People losing or changing insurance may be paying more or just not filling them.
If there's a time to take the best care of yourself that you possibly can, it's now. Because we also know with the global pandemic, with coronavirus, the healthier you are, should you contract the illness going in, the better your outcome is likely to be.
Dr. Holly Phillips says she saw people at the beginning of the pandemic rationing medication because they were afraid they might run out. Now, getting prescriptions has become even more of a financial hardship with the economic crisis. On top of that, insurance companies are dropping medications more now than ever. The graph you see here shows CVS Health and Express Scripts are covering fewer each year. That's according to the Drug Channels Institute. The reasons are complicated, but profits and negotiating with competing drug companies that make similar medications play a role. And there's another little known issue.
Most health plans now actually require you to use a specific network or pharmacies to fill your prescription. If you go outside of that network, your claim can be denied, and your insurer might require you to pay more in terms of a copay or pay in full.
That's why it's important to check if your pharmacy is a network for your coverage and that they haven't dropped the medication you need. Other reasons, medicines get denied coverage, pharmacies have old insurance information, or a medication was called in more than once. Even without insurance, you can still pay less. There are coupon websites like RX Saver. You could ask for a cash price. Mail orders might get you a better deal, or your doctor may be able to find an alternative medication that is cheaper or covered by insurance. Many people on unemployment are about to lose hundreds a week when the government stops paying the extra $600 in unemployment benefits. Tomorrow, as more people have trouble paying rent and even the grocery bill, we'll tell you what experts say is the best way to deal with debt during the pandemic.
In Indiana, we often say, right, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. Well, today it was neither that was an issue, and I just want to point out tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon the humidity will remain very comfortable, but just follow the squiggly line, and by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday in particular, the humidity will take over. Our temperatures during that stretch, they'll generally warm into the upper 80s by Friday, then into the lower to middle 90s for the weekend, with the chance for thunderstorms. More on that coming up. That's all for the news.